What's up, football-loving maniacs? Time for another edition of Three Honest Lads. I came in with the gallery view. I came in hot, spicy, like Mike Watts on the sideline for a freaking Fordham basketball game. There he is. How we doing, Watts?
I'm not allowed on the sideline anymore because of COVID protocols. Yeah.
And they put you in the rafters, right?
You're dang right they do.
Do they even let you in the building, or do you have to call it from the parking lot?
Yes, I'm in the building. It gets very cold up here. What's wrong with it? I'm not in St. Petersburg. I'm not in Devin's private island that he's currently staying at. It's very cold.
We shared a moment on social media about the concessions that may or may not be available at the Garden. What's Fordham playing with over there? I mean, now with COVID, probably not much, but I'm curious, what are the culinary details in that arena?
There are none. There's now none at the Garden. There is no food. There's only Iron Brew for the lads.
So let's get into the intro. The secret's out. We're here for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and we're here for what I call a super fan. You know, I was kind of looking into it, and I'm diving into all the data that are the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I mean, you're going all the way back. If you go to the original franchise, you're going to the mid-'70s. That was with the NASL. Got a star for that one. Don't you forget it. You're looking at coaches that have kind of come full circle. Paul Dalglish was a part of the organization. He's now with Miami FC. Stu Campbell was the one that everybody kind of thought was going to right the wrongs of this ship. But alas, their knight in shining armor was already sitting at the round table. That is Neil Collins. Neil Collins takes over the helm, not as a player, but as a coach. Already had his A license. And they did a little thing. You know, they won the Eastern Conference. They went to the unfortunate final that did not happen, but still an amazing feat. And I have a super fan that was there from the entire time. Yes, he was born in 1900. He's seen every single year of professional soccer in this country, and his name being none other than Mike Pendleton. How are we, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm a little thirsty.
Oh,
right here, so
there it is.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to go.
I'm going to check my mailbox. I know you sent me some, right?
Yeah. Expect it.
All right, so you're setting it up for us. Let's get right into it. You know, I had a little staggered list of what I wanted to talk about, but who really wants to go in order or deal with the schedule? Iron Brew. Tell, for all the people that don't know, for all our football-loving maniacs and our honest or not so honest lads, describe Iron Brew's flavor in 14 sentences.
14 sentences?
Or less.
You can describe it however you want, man.
So you've tried it. Both of you have tried it, I think. You know, when you came down here for the final. I say it is like cream soda and orange soda had a baby. That's what I think there's hints of bubble gum. Devin, you're a bourbon guy, so you're used to kind of hints of flavors. There's hints of bubble gum that are in there, but it's cream soda and orange soda had a baby. It does throw you off though, because I think you expect orange soda when you try it, and it's definitely not like the first thing that hits you in the face when you drink it.
It's been described to me as liquid diabetes. Do you feel that's an appropriate commentary?
Yeah, I mean, there's only 100 calories in this bottle, but like 24 grams of sugar. You know?
But
how many servings per bottle?
What's that?
How many servings per bottle?
One Scottish serving is this bottle.
That's actually a shot glass in Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they drink like 2 liters of this, you know, that's a serving. Yeah, but I mean, it is sugar. It's like flat out sugar, and it's a magic elixir. You know, it's the elixir of the gods. I think that's really what it is. You know,
it is. The most telling part of this final for me, in terms of like the memory I'm going to take away, was Jake Edwards giving me a bottle of it, giving me multiple bottles for me and Devin. At league headquarters on the Thursday before the final. And then the day of the final, when it was canceled, going outside Al Lang Stadium and drinking it alone in my car and staring at the stadium and what should have been.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. I mean, the good thing is, you know, when you want to celebrate, Iron Brew's there for you. When you need to commiserate, Iron Brew's there for you. You know, when you need some magic to propel you through, you know, the season, Iron Brew's there for you. Iron Brew's just always there.
Bro, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that's alcohol you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that too.
Mike, all jokes aside, how long have you been a fan of the Tampa Bay Rowdies?
So for me, I started coming in 2014.
Nice.
The reincarnation of the Rowdies started in 2009 and 2010 was the first season they played. And I was not a soccer fan, prior to 24. I kind of dabbled in the 2010 World Cup. I then got really hooked into the 2014 World Cup. And then after that, it was like, where can I quench, my appetite for more of this? And the Rowdies were on the radar screen. So we started going, and then we literally didn't stop. I think we went to the first game, and then from that point on, I don't know, there's not a whole hell of a lot of home games I've missed since we started going right after that World Cup in 2014.
When you first go to a game, what was sort of the thing that got you over the line to, okay, I'm gonna try one, and then what sort of got you to the point where you're going, okay, I'm gonna start showing up every game?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Iron Brew, give you a taste and then keep coming back for more.
Quench my hunger, my desire, or something? And I'm like, he wants to say quench thirst, and he's not gonna do it.
Yeah. I think for me, so I'm not a native Floridian, as most aren't that live down here, or many aren't that live down here. I grew up in New England, and I'm hardcore like Red Sox, Patriots. I'm a Patriots season ticket holder, Celtics, Bruins, hardcore fan of all those. And when I moved down here in 2004, it was something that was kind of missing in my life. I mean, sports is a big part. I'm a huge sports fan, big part of my life, but I couldn't latch on to the teams because of allegiances that I had. And I think when I started going in 2014, I mean, the mob, Roth's Mob is awesome. So you get the atmosphere when you're in there, it feels electric. And Al Lang is a gem of a stadium. So going there and being on the waterfront, amazing. And I think the history and the connection to the community, it was, similar to the Red Sox. For me, it's 5 generations of Red Sox fans. There was history. There were people who were going in 1975 that still go to the games, and you kind of felt like you were part of something. You felt like you were part of something that was big and it had some legacy to it. So when I went, I mean, the atmosphere and everything, and it's a blast going there. And then you kind of get hooked into realizing this is something bigger than, just a team that plays over on the waterfront. And so that was it for me. It kind of filled the gap of, I needed something local sports wise that could feel like it was mine. And I think it's grown into something that's, much, much more than that.
Mike, I already mentioned the championship all the way back in 75. Is that right? 75? 75, that's right.
Yeah.
I know you guys won a soccer ball in 2012 as well, both obviously within NASL, North American Soccer League. You make the transition to USL Championship in 2017. When that transition happens, the Rowdies were good. I mean, you're talking about a Rowdies team that has literally legendary, world-renowned players on it. Guys that are finishing off their careers, some that legendary within the Rowdies organization, finishing their careers as well. You've got Georgie Christoph, Joe Cole's in there, Schaefer in the midfield. I mean, massive names in world football. But from a success standpoint, 17 was kind of one of those years where you look back, and Watts and I would always joke, you guys would be up 3-0 with 10 minutes to go, and I'm like, this game's not over. But you could be down 4-0 with 5 minutes to go, and I'm like, this game's not over. It was this track meet back and forth. Neil has changed that. He's made these regular performances of his stout defending on the back line kind of circumvent the entire team, and you're good on the offensive side of the ball. You've got some good goalkeeping. A new ownership group by the Tampa Bay Rays in 2018. That's a lot going on in a 3 to 4 year span. What has it been like from a fan's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to somebody the other day. The Bill Edwards years were really exciting because you didn't know who could be walking through the door. The idea of sliding Zlatan while silly, you never knew. I mean, Joe Cole shows up, Marcel Schaefer shows up, Matt Pickens, talented goal. These guys were on big contracts, and you just didn't know what could happen. So that was really, really exciting. I think switching, 2017 was a little bit of a learning curve for us too when we came into the league, because NASL was an older league, older players, really physical. And we come into USL and you feel like, okay, we're going to steamroll over this. You know, they were just third division last year. We'll steamroll over this. And I think you realize that the type of player that you needed in USL wasn't the same type of player that was going to be successful. So it was a lot of a change, but I think the Neil, when you kind of get into 2018 was dark at the beginning of the year, kind of flip the switch when Neil gets at the helm. And I think there's been a growing identity to the club, I think, since then. So as a fan, I think you can feel that. You certainly see the product on there that Neil, I think in the Stuart Campbell years, I love Stu, but I don't know that we had a playing identity. And I think that's pretty clear under Neil, particularly in the last, 2019, 2020, he was getting his legs under him in 2018. But these teams feel like Neil Collins teams, the kind of guys that are playing feel like the fire that he would show out on the field. You see that. And there's definitely a playing identity, that back three and the wing backs pushing forward. And, we have come to expect something now that I just don't think we really had before. Unfortunately, in the couple years with Stu.
Devin mentions Joe Cole and Marcel Schaefer. Matt Pickens, it turns out, has actually had many good years left in his career by the time he signed. But I think about those guys. I think about Omar Bravo in Phoenix. I think about Frank Lampard and Andrea Pirlo and Stevie Gerrard at the MLS level, where guys at times come over here to finish off their career. Those have had good results and they've had some really bad results. Whereas the Rowdies have made this transition into being a springboard for younger players, for guys entering their prime as opposed to well onto the backside. For you as a fan and your conversations with other fans, how does that change the way you support a team, support a league, when it's not, let's go get Joe Cole, who obviously put a lot of effort in, but was on the backside of his career, versus, let's go get, guys like Leo Fernandez, who are exciting, but don't bring the same gravitas from a name perspective.
Yeah. I think at first it was difficult because you kind of got addicted to Joe Cole's here and Marcel Schaefer's here. Who's the next big name that's going to land on here? It could be anybody, anything is possible. So I think it took a little bit, even though we didn't have huge success maybe with those guys, you still felt like, I want to see that big name walking through the door. And it took, I think maybe this is the year where it really pivoted. Maybe the end of last year into this year, or the beginning of last year, where you said, okay, well, this is getting results now. And I'm enjoying, I think we were a slower team before. So when you watched us, it wasn't maybe the most entertaining brand of soccer to watch. If you're into the aesthetics of it, then it wasn't the most entertaining brand of soccer to watch, even if you'd see great, a bicycle kick by Joe Cole, we'll remember that forever. But so I think when you start to see the style of play and say, okay, that I can groove on the style of play more than maybe what I saw before, and the results start to turn, then you figure, okay, I can be into this. And we fortunately had some exciting, Malik Johnson, exciting player to watch. Leo Fernandez, exciting player to watch, with the feet and with his the ball at his feet. So I think when you start to see the aesthetic of it, and then you start to see the results churn out, then you say, okay, well, maybe we don't need a 30-year-old signing, coming in from overseas, or here and there. Be nice. When Zlatan eventually makes my gift come true, then I'll be super pumped about that. But you don't really need that. It may not be the best way to go about winning a league like this,
Yeah.
Mike, with everything that the club has been through, both from its inception all the way back into the 70s to going defunct to getting reborn. I mean, there was a time, correct me if I'm wrong, in that rebirth you talked about, which I think actually started in 2008. You guys played by a different name. Let's start with that. And then that was FC Tampa Bay. And then you get the rights, and I think it was 11 or 12, jump back into NASL. But with all of that, new ownership groups, everything, that's a lot of bouncing for a team in terms of who they're playing. the rivalry was always the Fort Lauderdale Strikers when I was growing up. Some of my mentors from a playing standpoint, coaching wise, lived in the South Florida area. They played for the Strikers. I got to ball boy for them. I saw those clashes in the Florida Derby. That team's no longer around, so that doesn't exist. You look at the Western Conference of the USL. You've got Phoenix in New Mexico, Phoenix and Orange. Okay, everybody hates Phoenix. We get that. So let's come back to the East. You've got the North Carolina boys who throw their name in there, right? Louisville and FC Cincinnati before Cincy left for the MLS. Nashville was in there as well. Pittsburgh has thrown their name in. There's so many teams in the East that have their rivalry games, and sometimes it's a triangle or a quad. What's the hatred or the foe, if you will, for the Tampa Bay Rowdies? Who do you guys want? Who do you want to go after?
Yeah. I think that actually has been a hard transition, because like NASL, half of the league was Florida and Canada. You know, you had Ottawa, Edmonton, Jacksonville, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, you know, at least in the modern times here. And then we'd hop over to USL, and we had a year of Orlando City B. And there Orlando City.
A year was enough, trust me.
B. Yeah, I mean, and we hate Orlando. So that kind of made it fun, right? But it's Orlando City B, you know, and then nobody. So, and then you have the closest team is Charleston, but they're like the nicest guys on the planet. Like, you go up there and the city's wonderful and the supporters are so nice and they invite you in and you can't even hate them. You know, there's no way you can hate them. I'm kind of hoping, you know, with Miami FC coming in last year, and we kind of, you know, we weren't able to travel down there and then travel up here, but that'll help a little bit. I also wonder if Louisville's actually dodged a lot of hate, you know, other than Cincy hated them, and Indy and Louisville don't like, you know, they have kind of a playful rivalry that's going on there. But I think Louisville's had so much success that I think they're starting to get to like Yankees level of, you know, sorry, Mike, I don't know if you're a Yankees fan. I hate the Yankees, you know? So they're starting to get to that point where I wonder, especially they knocked us out of the playoffs last year in 2019. You know, we did it in their house this year. If there could be something that starts to kind of, you know, brew up there a little bit with them, but hopeful for Miami to start to be a place where we can see a rivalry.
Yeah,
I'd love to see some more Florida teams come in here too.
It's funny to me that you say that, because you know, the Louisville Tampa Bay game is like nearing, and people are like, yes, time to finally get John Hackworth to, you know, turn back to his Tampa roots. And you're like, oh, okay, like I guess you guys had a spy up there all these years. It's
Sleeper agent.
Yeah, it's interesting to me with you talk about like some of the personalities and even the teams having sort of that stereotypical thought about them. Bill Edwards was such a heavy-handed owner in the way he ran his business. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it elicits opinion. Stu Sternberg isn't like that. Lee Cohen isn't really like that. Neil Collins is so respectable in the way he goes about his business. He's very quiet about it, certainly fiery on the touchline. What do you think the overarching view is from the outside of the Tampa Bay Rowdies and their fan base? What do people, if Charleston are too nice, and Charleston be assholes next time, really get angry, what are the Rowdies to outsiders?
I think I think when we came in, people thought, oh, hey, look at that. It's not quite New York Cosmos level of spending.
No, it's not the level, no.
But I do think when we came in, I think people wanted to knock us off, because they saw big names coming in. And I think because maybe we sputtered a little bit for a couple of years, my guess is more people were probably rooting for us against Louisville and Phoenix than they weren't, because I think we've been, we just hadn't lived up to expectations, and we hadn't run, all over the league. And we have generally a bunch of guys you kind of like, right? I mean, how do you not like Juan Tejada? How do you not like, well, I think we got a little bit of grit last year, because I think Forrest Lasso is the kind of guy that you love when he's on your team and you do not love when he's not on your team. So maybe there's a little bit of grit with Loro and Lasso coming in, but I think generally we're kind of we're kind of a likable group of people, and Neil's a likable kind of a guy. So my guess is that most people don't dislike us. I suppose if we had a period of success, a longer period of success, maybe that would happen. But I think everybody should love us.
Mhm.
I love us. I think everybody should love us.
It's funny because coming in to call that game, like there isn't an anti-hero in that group. It's not like, like Zlatan, everyone loves to love him and hate him at the same time. There's no one in that organization where it's like, I really don't like that guy. And for whatever reason, and Devin, I think you can attest to this, like you go through the league enough times, and it's like, there's people you really like, and there's people that, you just don't really care for. And I've never found anyone with the Rowdies where I'm like, I just don't care for this guy.
Yeah. I mean, Lucky Kosana, Lewis Hilton, these are guys that are loved all over the league, for other stops that they've been at too. I mean, I think we're pretty likable. I think we're a likable squad. This was every year I say, oh, I love this squad the best. This is the squad. There'll never be another one like this. And then every year I get proven wrong because I love the next year even more. But I do actually think that this is kind of a universally likable group of guys that we have assembled here today.
Mike, you were kind enough. Well, I want to say you're kind enough. We've seen what you put out first off on social media and some of the things you talked about Lucky a second ago. Loved what you did with charity for the prints that you guys put out. I told you that I'm a personal favorite of the cards that you've put together. Super, super cool stuff. That retro look to them, stats on the back, cool pictures on the front. There's the one that probably got the most traction was Rooney's ball to Acosta. I know you sent it over to us, but what did you say that my new hobby, or the sexy saxophone crescendo to Baker Street? Like all of this stuff, and we'll end up throwing it up, of course, so everybody can see it. These are things that it's not like the everyday person is going to just come up with them. Where does that passion come from? The artistic side as well, and who is your muse? Where do the ideas matriculate down to your brain from?
Yeah. What's funny thing, the Baker Street thing, after the win against Charleston, the first song that gets played over the stadium is Baker Street. Like at the whistle, Ryan Sudol, our announcer, he plays it over the stadium, which is fantastic. That one, my muse on that one was my son, who at the time was, I think, 7 or 8, and I'm about to drop him off at school, and he starts humming the saxophone solo, and I'm like, how the hell does a 7-year-old know like a 80s yacht rock track? And and so I drop him off, and he had seen it.
Just call it yacht rock.
It's yacht rock. That's what it is. It's a yacht rock. Yeah, it's totally like Michael McDonald and Hall & Oates. It's definitely in that genre of yacht rock. And then I'm driving away, and I'm like, man, that sax solo is legendary. I bet you could throw that on a soccer highlight and see what happens, because there's a nice build up and it explodes. And yeah, so my muse on that one was at the time my seven-year-old. But I think it's because I was late in life to soccer, not a lot of my friends were really into it, like my friends I grew up with. So Twitter became a place where I could talk about this to someone other than my dog, who doesn't have a ton of opinions about it. And it's been a really cool outlet to do creative projects. I grew up loving collecting cards, and so how cool to be able to have that for the team that I love. So that's what and my biggest muse is being online entirely way too much. I think my wife would underline that like maybe 3 or 4 times. I'm just on Twitter way too much, and I find way too much inspiration on there.
Me too. Yeah. No, I get it. And it's funny because your dog doesn't have any opinions but loves Baker Street.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, he does, man. He does. Well, who doesn't?
Agreed. And any of my highlights that get that treatment, it'll be the highlight of my career. Mike, it's funny to me that, I think the trading cards are maybe the thing that I look forward to seeing most right now, in terms of USL Twitter, because I'm very much in the same boat of I grew up collecting cards and everything like that. But in past years, you've done the attendance tracker. 2020 wasn't conducive to tracking attendance anymore.
No.
What was that like, just trying to compile all this and create a resource for other people, some of whom are trying to be like, yeah, my team, well, okay, Cincinnati, and then everyone else who was just interested in finding out.
Yeah. That started, I'm a nerd, I think, by nature. And I'm fascinated by the business side of this. And we don't get a lot of business metrics in lower division soccer that are published everywhere. One of the few is attendance that can kind of see, is this team healthy or not healthy? And I think when I started doing it, maybe 2016 or 2015, it wasn't compiled anywhere. If you wanted to see how the league was doing, and I was doing NASL and USL for a bit, and MLS, there was not a lot of places where you could see everything kind of across a dashboard. And I was fascinated. The Rowdies had been growing like year over year over year at the time. Edwards had invested a bunch in the stadium, and I kind of wanted to see how we stacked up. Were we doing? When I started, I didn't know, is 6,000 good or 6,000 bad, or where's everybody else when it comes to this? So, like most things, I think it started with my own, morbid curiosity for how the Rowdies were doing, or obsessive curiosity for how the Rowdies were doing. But then it was more fascinating to kind of see how the sport, over the course of this time, we've seen the sport explode. Number of teams explode, more people going to games in every level, amateur level to the semi-pro to pro soccer. So it was really exciting to kind of see and track that growth along the way. And this year was weird to not have that, because it's been part of like my Monday morning or Sunday evening routine, for years to do that. And so I'll be looking forward to getting back there. It was also it takes some time. It takes some time to do that. So it was nice to have a little bit of extra time, I suppose, over the course of this year. I'll be ready for it next year.
Extra time is competing podcasts. We don't talk about that here.
Yeah. True.
Mike, I've got one more. I don't know about Watts, but I've got one more. We haven't asked this question to a single fan yet, or their fan base, in this series that we've done. I actually don't think we've ever posed the question to anyone on the pod before. And I'm kind of curious. I know you don't speak for the entire Ralph's mob or everybody in that great cultural city that you have over there, but with that growth, with the expansion of the Rowdies, with the success that is coming along with it, you can't control, obviously personally, what's going on in MLS. You can't control that bid. I'm just kind of curious, from a fan's perspective, far-fetched or not, if you're in a zone or a location where MLS would become available to you, would you want that for your organization?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough one, because you see, we've obviously been there before. Edwards made a push for it, and I was in support of that, at the time. I think I think at the time, lower division soccer was so topsy-turvy, and, is it sustainable or is it not sustainable? And I'm not sure that we're entirely out of all of those woods yet, especially with COVID this past year. But it did look like a ticket to viability, a ticket to sustainability, that we would be here for some time if you were able to achieve something like that. And certainly, if you go Division One, you get eyeballs. We'd get more attention by the media in this. There's just no doubt. Even Cincinnati, who was doing quite well, gets more attention. Minnesota United got more attention when they moved up. But I think as time has gone on, I want the Rowdies to be as big as they can possibly be, but I don't think that has to be MLS. I think if it happened, I would be there for them, but it's not like a burning desire for me to, because I think what we have, I would love to see the Rowdies grow within what we have right now. And I think you lose a little bit of that when you go to MLS. We had Joe Cole would tussle my son's hair. I don't know if that happens in MLS, and you have relationships with the players that I don't think happens. And so you give up an awful lot, I think, if you go to D1. I know it's kind of a non-answer. I would love for the Rowdies to be as big as they could possibly be. And if that meant MLS, but I think you give up so much by going into something like that, that I think, I don't know I don't know how many Cincinnati fans miss maybe some of what they had, when they left. And brand new stadium and things like that. Yeah, you love all of that. But I think there's a lot of potential at the Division II level to be pretty compelling. I mean, what Louisville built is pretty compelling. And I don't think it matters if it's in D1 or D2 or D3 or where it's at. That's a pretty compelling thing. I think what we're building here is a pretty compelling thing. So I think I'll answer it. I would love to see the stadium get expanded and build a big permanent stand that wrapped around more than I would like to see us go to MLS, more than I'd like to see us go to Division I. That would be a bigger deal for me.
I want to finish with a little rapid fire.
Okay.
When you go to a game at Owl Lang,
Bourbon, beer, wine,
Bourbon.
liquor.
darn it,
Bourbon all day.
Sorry, not my turn. Sorry.
where are you going before the game? Where are you going after the game in St. Pete?
Well, me personally, before the game, I'm going into the parking lot because I'm probably hawking a bunch of Ralph's Mob merchandise out in a tent. So that's where I'm going before the game. God, there's great places. There's our bar for a while has been Thirsty First, which is on Central. It's almost like we're in such a perfect walkable area. There's so many bars that are all around there and a bunch of new stuff that's opened up, since in the last year. I would say probably Thirsty First before the game and walk out on the pier. I think that would be what Pier's brand new. It's beautiful, right on the water. You could put your feet in the water if you want to. New bars over there. I think that's what I would be doing. That's what I'll be doing next year.
If you're doing a mixed drink with Iron Brew, what's the other component?
Scots have told us that they'll mix whiskey with it, which I think is, probably their Scotch. I think vodka would probably be its best friend. There's just too many flavors going on inside of this magic that you don't want to compete with it, right? You just want to enhance it.
It's magic.
If Neil Collins went back to Scotland to coach there, what player on the roster do you think would be the funniest coach to have at his weekly press conference?
I would cry if Neil left first. The funniest player. Well, it's got to be Lauro. I think
your coach now. All right.
What's that? Yeah, I think
Lauro's
Lauro.
the coach now?
Yeah. I think he would be hilarious. He would be the best press conference I think that you could have. And I think Evan Lauro believes he can do absolutely anything on this planet, and I believe in that.
Would you guys have won the final, and what was the final score?
Yes, I think we would have. I don't think you could keep Phoenix scoreless. So I actually think it would have been 3-2. And we would have nicked one. Lucky would have nicked another game winner in 80 plus minutes.
And now I wish I had called that imaginary game. If Devin and I went into Ralph's Mob, but would we actually be mobbed?
Mobbed with love.
Oh, good. Thank God. Oh, I was so nervous. Oh gosh. I'm tapped out. Mike, what you do on social media and with the organization and obviously coming on with us, we appreciate all of it. Devin and I are big fans. I just want to know, how did you come up with your Twitter avatar? And then Devin can wrap up the show. Like, how do you come up with the name?
At Fat Seven Deuce?
Yeah.
That one? Yeah. So I'm 41, too. I can't remember. Once you turn 40, you don't remember how old you are. In high school, I bought a 1972 Plymouth Duster. And the license plate we put on it was Fat 72. And so that became like AOL screen name or AOL messenger name, and basically, Instagram, Twitter, everything.
That's fat.
Yeah, fat. As we said in the mid 90s, it was a really fat ride.
PHAT, bro.
Exactly.
I wasn't even alive when this happened.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me so sad.
Be grateful for that one. Be grateful for that one, Watts. Mike, thanks, dude. Beyond grateful for you coming on. Just heard Mike Pendleton, avatar at Mike Watts on air, at Devin Cronine, at 3 Honest Lads, football loving maniacs. We love you. So does Ralph's Mob. Apparently, so does Fordham. No culinary program there, but we're going to work on that. We will see you soon. Peace.